begin committee hearing today. I'd like to welcome you to the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee hearing. My name is Mike Jacobson. I'm from North Platte and represent the 42nd Legislative District. I serve as vice chair of the committee. The committee will take up the bills in the order posted. Our hearing today is your public part of the legislative process. This is your opportunity to express your position on the proposed legislation before us today. Committee members will come and go during the hearing. We have to introduce bills in other committees, and we are called away. It is not an indication we're not interested in the bill that being heard in this committee, just part of the process. To better facilitate today's proceedings, I'd like you to abide by the following procedures. First, please silence your phones or turn them to vibrate. Move to the front row when you're ready to testify. Order of testimony will be the introducer, the proponents, opponents, neutral testimony, and closing. Hand your green sign-in sheet to the committee clerk when you come up to testify. Spell your name for the record before you testify. Be concise. It is my request that you limit your testimony to 3 minutes. If your testimony goes beyond 3 minutes, I will ask you to conclude your remarks. And there's very likely that if the committee members want you to finish, they'll ask you a question that maybe allow you to finish that comment. If you will not be testifying at the microphone, but want to go on the record as having a position on a bill being heard today, there are gold sheets at each entrance where you may leave your name and other pertinent information. These sign-in sheets will become exhibits in the permanent record at the end of today's hearing. Written materials may be distributed to committee members as exhibits while testimony is being offered. Hand them to the page for distribution to the committee and staff when you come up to testify. We need 10 copies. If you have written testimony but do not have 10 copies, please raise your hand now so the page can make copies for you. To my immediate, to my immediate left in the empty chair is our Chairman Julie Slama, who will be gone today. Thus, you have me. And I will start on my extreme left with Senator Bostar and have each senator introduce themselves.
Elliot Bostar, District 29.
Brad Von Gillen, District 4.
Ray Aguilar, District 35.
Kathleen Couch, District 31.
Bo Ballard, District 21.
George Dungan, District 26.
To my immediate left is Committee Counsel Joshua Cristolier, and to the end of the table is our Committee Clerk Natalie Shunk. The committee members have, of course, introduced themselves. We will have 2 pages today. We have one right now, Maddie and Maya. So with that, we're ready to begin. And since I have the first bill up, I'm going to turn the chair over to Senator Bostar while I testify.
Thank you. So we'll open the hearing on LB 852. Welcome, Senator Jacobs.
Well, good afternoon, Senator Bostar and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Mike Jacobson, spelled M-I-K-E-J-A-C-O-B-S-O-N. I represent Legislative District 42. I am here today to introduce Legislative Bill 852. LB 852 solves an issue that was brought to my attention by the members of the Nebraska insurance industry while discussing other Medicare insurance issues. Medicare, as a reminder, is the federal health insurance program for seniors and certain disabled individuals. Specifically, the issue relates to a loophole in federal Medicare law exploited by a small number of durable medical equipment suppliers to the detriment of Medicare beneficiaries in Nebraska and Medicare supplement insurers. Under current federal guidelines, non-participating Medicare providers are health care providers who do not accept assignment of a claim, which means that they do not have to file the claim with Medicare on the beneficiary's behalf. But a non-participating provider does accept the Medicare approved rate for most services. Such non-participating providers are prohibited from charging more than 15% higher than the Medicare rate. Other types of healthcare providers are those who accept assignment and work directly with Medicare and those who opted out of Medicare altogether. Durable medical equipment, or DME suppliers, are businesses that supply home health equipment that is reusable, such as wheelchairs, home oxygen equipment, prosthetics, etc. While the cap on non-participating providers of 15% higher than the Medicare reimbursement rate applies to all other types of medical services, such as physician services and hospital services, the federal government has not applied this rule to DME suppliers. This has led to some DME suppliers to charge both beneficiaries and Medicare supplement insurers rates significantly higher than the Medicare rates, to the level that the insurers believe that the levels are abusive. And I know they will testify behind me to provide some examples. These charges over the Medicare rates are paid by both insurer and the beneficiary. When the beneficiary pays the difference between what Medicare paid and the bills charged, this is known as balanced billing. When the insurer pays the excess payments, that leads to higher premiums to all senior citizens. LB 852 simply closes this loophole to protect Nebraskans by simply applying the 15% cap that applies to all other health providers to DME suppliers as well. With that, I would stop and ask for any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. First proponent. Welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon, members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Jeremiah Blakey, spelled Jeremiah, B as in boy, Lake. I'm the Government Affairs Associate and Registered Lobbyist for Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Nebraska, testifying in support of LB 852. I want to express my sincere appreciation to Senator Jacobson for introducing this bill. LB 852 would close a loophole in federal law to protect seniors from excessive charges for durable medical equipment. Specifically, LB 852 would apply the same federal limit to DME suppliers that is currently in place for all other medical providers. Under federal law, Medicare providers who choose not to accept Medicare assignment can charge a Medicare beneficiary no more than 115% of the Medicare approved amount. LB 852 would apply the same cap of 115% to DME suppliers. The vast majority of DME suppliers in Nebraska are honest businesses providing an important service to seniors. However, we receive claims from a very, very small number of DME suppliers who are exploiting a loophole in federal law and submitting claims that we believe, at the very least, are waste and abuse because of the exorbitant prices. A common example of these types of claims we receive are for power wheelchairs. If you look at one DME supplier's website, the most expensive power wheelchair they offer costs about $7,000. Yet we receive claims from suppliers in the range from $28,000 to $36,000 for these power wheelchairs. Unfortunately, we have no legal recourse to contest or deny the claims, since Medicare supplement plans are required to pay all excess charges for our members. In effect, we were paying for new cars, not power wheelchairs. These claims are coming from a very small number of DME suppliers, but they are having a significant impact on claims costs, which ultimately are passed on to seniors in the forms of premiums. Over the last several years, we have tried different avenues to put an end to these abusive claims. We worked with our colleagues at Mutual of Omaha and other Medicare supplement carriers to raise this issue with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. The NAIC had, as a result, asked the federal government to clarify that the federal cap on the amount a medical provider can charge Medicare beneficiaries also applies to DME suppliers. We also worked with the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association to ask Medicare to investigate these claims as fraud, waste, and abuse. Unfortunately, those efforts have been unsuccessful, which leads us to LB 852. This bill will have no impact on those DME suppliers who accept Medicare assignment. However, LB 852 will put an end to the abusive claims that we are currently seeing from a very small number of DME suppliers. I encourage you to advance this bill to general file to protect seniors from excessive claims and higher Medicare supplement premiums. Again, I want to thank Senator Jacobson. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Blakey. Questions for the committee, Senator Cow.
Hi, Mr. Blakey, thank you. Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
My first thought on this is that we're limiting private businesses to charge what they will and people can choose to buy it or not. But you said something about the Medicare supplement plans. Can you go into that in more detail for me?
Yes, so right now there's a federal law that prohibits all other Medicare providers from essentially balance billing Medicare beneficiaries. If that law applies to hospitals, doctors, any other provider, CMS has interpreted that federal law does not apply to DME suppliers, okay? So that's the first issue we have, is that there isn't a cap on what they can charge. And then we have a requirement under state regulations let me back up. As Medicare supplement plans, we are obligated to pay any excess charges that our members see from providers. So if we get a claim from a DME supplier for an amount, we have to pay that claim. We have no ability to negotiate, deny, or anything else. We just have to accept whatever they charge.
And is that, so our DME providers, are they automatically just anybody who provides this equipment can be considered a DME provider, or do they already have to be established within a Medicare or Medicaid framework? Are they accepting Medicare payments for other things, and so that qualifies them? I guess, at what point do you say, okay, this is just somebody with a couple extra wheelchairs who's renting them out?
Yeah, so a DME supplier can choose a couple of different things. They can choose to participate in Medicare, and under that situation, they would see a Medicare beneficiary. They would bill Medicare directly, and Medicare would pay them whatever the fee schedule allows. There's also an option for a DME supplier to accept assignment, which is basically the same thing. It's just they do it on as I understand it, kind of a claim by claim basis. And they can also choose not to accept assignment, which is, at that point, it becomes the senior's responsibility to pay whatever charge the DME supplier determines is appropriate. If they have a Medicare supplement plan, whether or not they have a Medicare supplement plan, the member is responsible for that cost. If they have a Medicare supplement plan, that cost transfers to the Medicare supplement plan.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Kind of, let me walk
It's a lot.
So, so my dad needs a motorized wheelchair.
Yes.
And so he goes and says, hey, this is one I want. And I pulled some up. There's some really cool power wheelchairs out there. So he says, this is one I want. It costs $18,000. Medicare has said, we think you should only get a $7,000 one. So if he goes to someplace that has chosen to participate, they would say, we can give you the $7,000 one. Would they then say, you have to pay anything else if you want?
It has to be a Medicare covered piece of equipment, right?
Okay, so it already has to be, Medicare has already had to look at it and say, okay, we won't pay for anything that's not already Medicare covered. So even with the supplemental, so if somebody has a supplemental, they say, yeah, but I really want this one. Unless Medicare has said, these are the ones that we cover.
I'm going to defer that to the testifier behind me. I think she'll have a little more expertise into that kind of
Okay.
detail.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Some noodling to do.
Senator Dungan.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I'm also trying to wrap my head, I think, around a little bit of the process, but I do appreciate you kind of explaining that. That makes a lot more sense. Is it, just to make sure I understand too, when you're talking about these like $28,000, $30,000 claims, do you, based on your experience and your sort of knowledge of this field, see any rational connection between the amount that you're being asked to pay and the actual DME that the person is purchasing? Because it sounds like to me that the $28,000, $30,000 is astronomically high, right? That's not even a rational connection to even the more expensive $18,000, $10,000 wheelchair.
Right.
Is there any rational connection between that dollar amount, or do you think that legitimately it's just an overcharge to get extra money that you then have to pay?
I would say those claims are an anomaly in what we see for other durable medical equipment from other suppliers.
Okay, thank
They
you.
stand out, yeah.
Thank you, Senator Dungan. Any other questions from the committee? Thank you, Mr. Blakey.
Thank you.
Next proponent. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Senator Bostar, members of the committee. My name is Kelly Harry, Kellieharry. I'm a senior associate counsel with Mutual of Omaha, here today to testify in support of LB 852. I'd also like to start by thanking Senator Jacobson and his staff for their work on this important bill, and to thank the committee for your consideration of this matter today. Mutual of Omaha Insurance Company is headquartered in Nebraska, and at present is the third largest carrier of Medicare supplement plans in the nation. Medicare Supplement, MedSup, Medigap, it's known by a lot of names. Those policies are designed to cover the out-of-pocket expenses that are incurred by traditional Medicare beneficiaries. LB 852 is before you today to address abusive claims that we're seeing from certain suppliers of durable medical equipment. And I did hear some of the questions that were posed, and I'm hopeful that some of my comments will address those questions and to maybe pull back and expand on some of the earlier testimony. Durable medical equipment is an example of a Part B benefit under Medicare. And there are three types of providers that generally issue benefits for Part B covered services. There are the opt-out providers that you heard about. Those are providers for services that do not engage in the Medicare system. They don't submit a bill to Medicare. They don't receive payments or approvals for those. Then there are the participating providers, which accept Medicare and those Medicare assignments in all cases. So to really simplify this, a participating provider will submit a bill for its services to Medicare of $150. Medicare will approve $100 of that. They accept that in full satisfaction. That there's no further excess charge. A non-participating provider, which is who we're here to talk about today, will submit a $150 bill. Medicare will approve $100. And if they have not accepted assignment, then they're limited to a 15% overage of that. So $15 will then be passed on to the Medicare beneficiary, or if they have a MedSup policy, to the MedSup policy to cover. The issue that is really taking place is with these non-participating DME providers who are not captured by that excess limit. So there is essentially no cap on what they can provide in excess. So what we see in that example is a DME provider sends that same $150 bill to Medicare. Medicare approves that $100. And now that they can send the full $50 back to the insured, or if they have a MedSup policy, to the MedSup insurer. That's great if that $150 represents a reasonable and appropriate charge. However, the next week, same Medicare insurer sends now same equipment, $500 bill. Medicare approves $100, and the $400 remaining goes on to the Medicare supplement insurer or the Medicare beneficiary. The week after that, it's $2,000. The week after that, it's $5,000. So there's no cap and there's no mechanism in place. And I do see I'm at time, so I want to ensure that I provide an opportunity for any questions.
Yeah, let me see if any of the members of the committee have any questions. Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Senator Cow.
Would you like to finish what you were going to say?
Certainly. Thank you so much. So I think in short, the ultimate point here is that Medicare supplement insurers are ready, willing, and able to pay all qualifying charges. What we need here, though, is a mechanism to prevent untenable and completely unreasonable charges. We are seeing examples of 800% over what Medicare approves. So we need a mechanism to be able to say what is a reasonable and customary charge. or a process in place that caps it in the same way that a doctor, a hospital, or anything else would be. We think this bill is a key step in that direction. We're seeing other states take these approaches. There are 8 states that already have legislation in place that address balanced billing, and we think this is a reasonable approach that follows suit.
Senator Cal.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around if this is a private business and they've opted out. They said we don't want to participate with Medicare prices. Yes. So there's 2 parts to that. If they're getting some reimbursement from Medicare, then aren't they automatically kind of participating?
So
is that the assumption?
Yes. So there are providers that will, and it's a bit of a misnomer, right? Because a participating provider is someone who accepts Medicare and that's it. They accept that as full satisfaction. That's what you see for most hospitals and physicians who accept they're usually participating providers. Non-participating providers will accept Medicare payments, but generally speaking, a good example of a non-participating medical provider would be a psychiatrist. They will often not accept an assignment. So Medicare approves $100 of their bill. They take that and then they have an overage. They're limited to 15% over that amount. The DME providers do not have that limitation.
So this would not apply to just a business who says, look, I don't take any payments from Medicare. I will bill straight to the individual, and however the individual chooses to handle payment is up to them.
Correct.
Does not apply to them.
Correct. They're for any individual who's operating in that space and does not accept Medicare, there are other rules and things that apply to them. But the situation that I'm referencing today are those individuals who do accept Medicare payments and then excess bill and excess charge the remainder without any basis for a reasonable and customary charge. As you heard in the prior testimony, we're seeing charges for a $46,000 scooter when that's truly nowhere to be found.
That clears it. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Cal. Additional questions, Senator Ballard.
Thank you, Senator Bostar. So can you tell me what happens? So a senior purchases a scooter and you get the bill. Does the senior not go with the scooter, or is that just wrapped into a premium in the next go around? So
the scooter does seem to be kind of a simple example, and we do see that in a great deal. They choose a scooter. Medicare will approve its amount. They can choose whatever scooter they like, whatever scooter is supported by their physician or recommended for their needs. And Medicare has its own fee system set up for durable medical equipment suppliers. So they're making a decision about what is reasonable and customary and approving that amount. But there's no mechanism for that individual to limit the excess bill that they receive. So that individual may get a bill. I will tell you what we see is it's pulled back, generally speaking, and we'll see different bills if it's being sent to an individual without a Medicare supplement policy versus someone with a Medicare supplement policy. But we're left with the choice as the Medicare supplement insurer to say, we think this is unreasonable price gouging, and we have no mechanism to challenge it based on the language of our policy. And we're forced to either pay it or reject it and risk it being sent on to our insured, which is something that we're not satisfied with.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ballard. Additional questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Additional proponents? Welcome, Mr. Bell.
Good afternoon, Senator Bostar and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Robert M. Bell. Last name is spelled B-E-L-L. I'm the Executive Director and Registered Lobbyist for the Nebraska Insurance Federation, and I am here today in support of LB 852. Would like to publicly thank Senator Jacobson for introducing LB 852 on the Federation's behalf. As you know, the Nebraska Insurance Federation is the state trade association of insurance companies, Nebraska insurance companies, excuse me. Numerous member companies of the Federation write Medicare supplement insurance, including a number of Nebraska domiciled insurance companies such as Mutual of Omaha, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Nebraska, Physicians Mutual Insurance Company, Central States Life and Health Company of Omaha, and Globe Life Insurance Company. According to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, Federation member United Healthcare is the largest writer of Medicare supplement insurance in the nation. The Blue Association plans, when you pool them all together, are number 2, and the Mutual of Omaha is number 3. In Nebraska itself, Blue Cross Blue Shield is the largest writer of Medicare supplement by a significant margin. And I tell you these stats just to kind of inform the committee of the importance of LB 852 to the Federation members, and to let you know that both Mutual of Omaha and Blue Cross Blue Shield are experts in paying Medicare claims, and they see this experience kind of across the spectrum. I'm not going to reiterate what has already been said by both Ms. Harry and Mr. Blakey. I know Ms. Harry did hand out some documents, including a presentation that was given to the NEIC by the Nebraska Department of Insurance a couple of years ago, kind of highlighting some of the claims that we're seeing. You'll see the prosthetic nose document in particular, which is pretty eye-opening on the costs related to that. And again, we believe this would only apply how this bill is drafted. We're only worried about a small number of durable medical equipment suppliers who seem to be abusive in their pricing practices. We know the vast majority of DME suppliers are good business partners to do business with for Nebraska seniors. But we are worried about balance billing as it relates to Medicare beneficiaries if they don't have Medicare supplement policies. If they do, we're worried about increased premiums of Nebraska seniors for these policies. It kind of seems like it's the Wild West. So we wish the federal government would make more reasonable rulings from CMS on DME, what they have been unwilling to do. You also have information in your packet there from Mutual of Omaha related to the NEIC reaching out to CMS to challenge their decision and the response back from CMS. But with that, appreciate the opportunity to testify. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Questions from the committee? I have one.
Sure.
So you talked about how it's your assessment that it's a small number of these suppliers that are like, I guess, characterizing it, operating in bad faith. What can you try to quantify that? What share of these providers would you say?
So I saw some information. There's a large number of DME suppliers that sell to Nebraskans, right? We're talking in the thousands. We were laughing, wondering how the DME economy might change in the future with, the prevalence of Amazon and other online retailers and whatnot, and how will they integrate into this whole supply chain. But we believe it's a very small number, probably less than 100 or so, maybe even a smaller number than that. I'm not in the bowels of the claims, so I don't know, but I do know that the companies have identified a number of businesses, small number, relatively so, but that they do exist.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Additional questions? Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Additional proponents? Good afternoon, Ms. Ragland.
Good afternoon, Chair Bostar and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Gina Ragland, JINARAGLAND, here today testifying in support of LB 852 on behalf of ARP Nebraska. When you're trying to navigate aging in place, managing an illness, or coping with a disability, it can be hard to keep up with all the moving parts associated with your care, and especially it can be difficult in acquiring a durable medical device. Older adults who are more likely to have a chronic illness or mobility difficulties need durable medical equipment more than any other group. Maneuvering this system can be long and confusing and can create a financial hardship for consumers, especially those on fixed incomes. A July 2022 Kaiser Health tracking poll shows that unexpected medical bills are near the top of the list of people's financial worries, with about 2/3 or 64% of the public saying they are at least somewhat worried about affording unexpected medical bills for themselves and their family. About 4 in 10 adults, or 41%, report having debt due to medical bills, including debts owed to credit cards, collection agencies, family and friends, banks, and other lenders to pay for their healthcare costs. Additionally, about half of adults say they would be unable to pay an unexpected medical bill of even just $500 in full without going into debt. When someone undergoes a major medical procedure, has a major medical setback, is diagnosed with a life-changing illness or disability, they need medical equipment to support and focus on their recovery. Like most things, medical equipment is expensive. Patients depend on durable medical equipment to function independently or age in place in their homes and their communities. These items are intended to help consumers complete their daily activities and are medically necessary due to a medical condition or recent procedure. The last thing people need in these situations is to get a bill in the hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars from a non-participating provider for equipment that is vital for them to live. Our healthcare system is already complicated, and consumers who do their best to navigate it in good faith deserve to be protected from costs that cannot always be predicted and therefore cannot be avoided. As you know, LB 852 closes a necessary loophole in the federal CMS guidance and will provide a necessary consumer protection to halt possibilities of insurance non-payment and result in balanced billing for older Nebraskans. Thank you to Senator Jacobson for his leadership on this issue, for introducing the legislation, and thank you to the committee for the opportunity to comment. We would ask you to support 852 and advance it to the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Ragland. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Additional proponents? Seeing none. Opponents? Seeing none. Neutral? Seeing none. Senator Jacobson, object to close.
I haven't been doing closes when there's no opposition testimony, but I didn't want you guys to think that I was always going to do
I
that.
think you're missing an opportunity.
I think I would. Well, let me just say this, and Senator Kauth, I appreciate the questions that you asked, because I spent most of this last summer working with the health insurers on my Medigap policy, which of course was heard in this committee last session. And we reached a compromise, and through that whole process, I learned a lot more about some of the issues that they're facing. And as we work through a compromise on the Medigap plan, one of the things we continue to focus on is affordability of insurance and making sure that any moves that we made were not going to negatively impact the affordability to those who are already on Medicare, or in this case, Medicaid supplement program or Medicare supplement plans, or going to be negatively impacted from a premium adjustment because of things that we bring into the bill require them to do. That became very clear when you look at this durable medical equipment that, and I want to reiterate one of the things I think that Mr. Blakey mentioned in his testimony and alluded to was, think about, you pull up the website and you look at one of those $17,000 scooters and your insured purchases that scooter. The bill gets sent to Medicaid and our Medicare, and they say pay $12,000. So instead of, and so at that point in time, they turn around and send a bill to the MedSup policy provider for $30,000. Well, that same scooter was advertised on their website. That's 17. Where'd that number come from? And you also heard it alluded to that, well, if the individual, they may not have charged them that much, but when they see that they're covered with the MedSup plan, hey, here's our opportunity to go stick it to the insurance company. But when you stick it to the insurance company, you stick it to all of us. We all pay. We all pay those premiums. So what this bill is really designed to do is to get everybody on the same plane. You can upcharge 15% above what is provided by Medicare. You can be in that business if you want to be in this. It's a captive business. You're gonna know you're gonna get paid. I can tell you from a number of the businesses I finance, they don't always get paid. In this case, you do. Got a pretty good provider out there between Medicare and the insurance plans. So I think the bill is reasonable. It closes a good loophole that needs to be closed up, and ultimately it saves us all. And it also prevents those uninsured clients, patients out there from balance billing, which could come back, as the last testifier mentioned, and really hit them at a time when they've got all these other costs involved. So again, I would encourage you to vote in favor and move this particular bill out of committee to the floor. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Final questions from the committee. Thank you. And for the record, there was 1 proponent letter, 2 opponent letter, and 0 neutral letters. And that concludes our hearing on LB 852.
Okay, thank you, Senator Bostar. And we're now going to move on to LB 1024. And Senator Bostar, you're up.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Senator Jacobson, fellow members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. For the record, my name is Elliot Bostar. That's ELIOTBOSTAR, and I represent Legislative District 29. Today, I am presenting LB 1024, which proposes to bar any documents or information solely related to costs from being provided during the external review process of an adverse determination by a health carrier. An adverse determination is any decision to deny or reduce a claim by a health carrier on the grounds of medical necessity, appropriateness, healthcare setting, level of care, or effectiveness. Nebraska law, the Healthcare Grievance Procedures Act, and the Utilization Review Act provides for the appeals of adverse determinations and sets up the processes, standards of review, and timeliness for an internal review, which is essentially the review process of an adverse determination by a health carrier. If the carrier does not reverse its initial decision and the adverse determination becomes final, the covered person can file an external review via the Health Carrier External Review Act. For state-regulated plans, when a covered person subject to final adverse determination has exhausted internal appeals within the health carrier, the covered person can file an external review with the Nebraska Department of Insurance. Once filed, the department will pass along the information to a nationally accredited independent review organization. The processes, timeliness, and standards of review utilized by the independent review organization are included in the Health Carrier External Review Act, including expedited processes when medically necessary. LB 1024 amends the provision of the Health Carrier External Review Act, which enumerates the information that the independent review organization would receive from the health carrier that made the final adverse determination, by making it clear that documents or other information solely related to cost shall not be provided. I introduced this legislation after meeting with a stage 4 cancer patient from Lincoln. You will hear from her this afternoon in her struggle to acquire the medication that she was prescribed for her cancer diagnosis. Medication which was covered by her insurance provider for 2 years. Stage 4 cancer diagnosis is something I hope none of us ever have to experience, whether it be ourselves or a loved one. Fighting a health carrier's adverse determination adds even more stress to an already difficult situation, especially when you or a loved one is denied a treatment that was keeping your condition in check. LB 1024 makes clear that information solely related to cost shall not be part of the external review process, and that these decisions should be based on medical necessity. I urge the committee to support LB 1024. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Senator Bostar. Questions for Senator Bostar? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
I now ask for any proponents of LB 1024.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Kathy Martinez, CATHY-MARTINEZ. I'm a 6th-generation Nebraskan. I'm 52 years old, married with 8 children. I'm a small business owner running a child care center for nearly 31 years. Our youngest child has severe autism, and over the past 20 years, I've become an advocate for people with disabilities as well. Until August of 2020, I was the picture of health. I worked out every morning. I've never smoked. I ate healthy. No family history of cancer. I was living a great life. I developed some lower abdominal pain and assumed I pulled a muscle during a workout. I went to see my doctor and he found nothing wrong with me. I went back 2 more times and still nothing was found. On September 27th of 2020, the pain was so intense, I went to St. Elizabeth's ER. 1 scan and 1 hour later, my life had changed forever. The doctor came in and bluntly told me I had stage 4 kidney cancer. She showed me the images of my torso full of tumors. The largest tumor was 5.5 inches sitting on my left kidney and had sprouted tentacles into my abdominal wall. I had 2 tumors in my lungs, 1 under my heart, and the cancer had spread into my lymph nodes. She estimated by their size, the tumors had been growing for approximately 18 months. I was diagnosed with advanced stage renal cell carcinoma, sarcomatoid cell type with rhabdoid features, essentially the worst of the worst. I was given 8 to 30 months to live. My daughter had just announced she was expecting my first grandchild, and I wasn't even sure I would live to meet her. My husband Cesar and I cried until we could cry no more. We began to make plans for my death, funeral plans, purchasing cemetery lots, financial planning for our son with disabilities. My family encouraged me to find a new medical team that would treat my cancer more aggressively. They found an oncologist and surgeon they wanted me to see. My new team was unanimous on how to proceed. Immediate removal of the left kidney and surrounding lymph nodes, followed by relatively newer immunotherapy chemo drugs, Inlyta and Keytruda. One is fast-acting to shrink the tumors near my heart and lungs, and the other was long-acting to keep the cancerous tumors from coming back. It was a very difficult time for my family. I was hospitalized 5 times between September 27th and November 30th of 2020. My skin began to slough off. I lost all my hair. I couldn't walk or eat. I had given birth to 9-pound babies that didn't compare to the pain that cancer was wreaking on my body. It was excruciating. By January of 2020, my medical team had me stabilized. The Inlyta did its job. It shrank tumors within 3 months. The Keytruda has been doing its job for nearly 3 years now, keeping my cancer in check. My insurance company, Medica, decided in June of 2023 it would no longer cover the cost of my drugs. They gave me lots of excuses, but I believe the reason was the cost of the medication. In a 3-day span, Medica gave me 3 different rulings for drug coverage, 9 more treatments, no more treatments, and then ultimately gave me 1 more treatment when I pointed out that they must cover the cost of my drug during the appeal process. They gave me that additional treatment and then promptly denied my appeal. I applied for an external review of this decision to the Nebraska Insurance Review Board, as my entire case had been mishandled. Ultimately, the review board decided that since I have stage 4 cancer, I'm incurable and merely treatable, and the judge would only prolong my life. That was their words, not mine. My oncologist has had terminal cancer patients who have been on Keytruda for 7 to 10 years. He said that given my relative youth and fitness at the time of diagnosis, 15 to 20-year remission would be very possible for me. Insurers and the review process have not kept pace with the advancements in immunotherapy that transforms deadly cancers into chronic conditions. I'd like to ask the review board what they think about insulin for diabetics or medicine for heart or thyroid conditions. They're not curable, just treatable chronic conditions. Where will they draw the line with determination such as this? They sided with the decision to deny me a drug that's saving my life for the last 3 years. I'm okay with merely prolonging my life. Aren't we all hoping for long lives? Isn't that the goal of modern medicine? It's tragic that these 2 entities put a dollar value on my life. If they're doing this to me, they're doing this to other Nebraskans. My life has value. I'm a contributing member of the community. I'm currently receiving my drugs supplied from Merck on a compassionate waiver based on income. The drug is working for me, so why would I ever stop taking a drug that's saving my life? I'm happy to report that since February of 2021, my scans have been stable with no new growth. I'm still employed full-time. I'm still running an advocacy nonprofit for people with disabilities on the side. I found an excellent medical team who believe in me and give me hope. I've outlived my original prognosis. I am now at the 40-month mark since diagnosis. I believe in the power of prayer, and it's nothing short of a miracle that I'm still alive today. I've been able to not only witness my granddaughter's birth, but we're now planning her 3rd birthday party, and we've since welcomed an additional granddaughter. I'd like to thank Senator Bostar for his leadership on this initiative, and I'd like to thank you all for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for your testimony, and you maybe went a little over the 3 minutes, but there's no way after all you've been through that I could even begin to ask you to stop your testimony, so thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for the committee? Senator Dungan.
Thank you, Senator Jacobson, and thank you for being here. And I guess I just want to start by saying I'm very happy you're here. Thank you very much. What was it like for you to have to deal with that entire external review process while simultaneously dealing with your diagnosis and also going through the process of taking the drugs? What was that like from a more personal level? Because I don't think we know what that probably feels like to actually be in that sort of struggle. So if you could go into a little more detail about that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. My life is already challenging enough. I have a child, an adult child with disabilities, and I have stage 4 cancer, and I'm trying to maintain employment so I can pay my bills and not lose my home. And then it caught me completely off guard that they were going to deny the coverage of the drug. I had no idea that they were going to do that. So it just complicated my life and made it more difficult. And I felt like all my energy should be put into trying to recover. But now my energy had to be focused on getting access to the drug that's saving my life, which obviously created a lot of stress.
How long was that entire process that you had to go through from the time that the decision was made to no longer cover that medication to the final external review decision being made?
About 60 days.
Thank you.
Senator Cal.
Thank you for being here, Ms. Martinez. When we look at the way this bill is written, do you, maybe this is a question for Senator Bostar, documents solely related to cost shall not be provided? Do you feel like that's just a way of saying we're going to set the cost over here and look at just the success of the drug and the recommendations of the health outcome?
I would like to think that my physician would be able to determine the medication that I'm able to receive and not my insurance company.
Thank you.
Other questions? If not, I truly appreciate you being here today, and thank you for your courage.
Thank you.
Proponents.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. My name is Roxanne Holliday, ROXANN HOLLIDAY. Bear with me. I thought I had 5 minutes, so I will try to shorten this. On July 18th.
I will stop you shortly after 3.
Okay. On July 18th of this past year, essentially 6 months ago to date, I received MRI results that changed my world and confirmed my worst fear. I learned the cause of my persistent back pain was in fact the return of my breast cancer. After 17 years, it was back stage 4, for which there is currently no known cure, only treatments to prolong my life. The doctor said the cancer was in the lymph nodes in my neck, in my hips, and in my spine, where it caused a fracture. I was referred to one of the best oncologists around, and after 2 weeks of more tests and consultations, we could discuss treatment options. The oncologist recommended a treatment regimen of a daily pill and an injection every 3 weeks of a new targeted therapy drug. So to step back, 17 years ago, I was 37 when I was first diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. Every 3 weeks, I took treatments for 18 weeks. Each treatment caused my white count to drop to 0 and would put me in the hospital. I required blood transfusions. I lost my hair. I got miserably sick, and I had to be careful around my own kids, 8, 6, and 2 at the time, because chemotherapy kills good and bad cells. So I was at risk of getting very sick. In addition, I needed a double mastectomy, a hysterectomy, and 14 lymph nodes removed from under my arm, all necessary parts of my treatment. So you can imagine the relief I felt in July when my doctor recommended a treatment plan that did not include chemotherapy. After careful study of the most recent research and case studies, my oncologist confirmed that the genetic makeup of my cancer would be best and most effectively treated with a daily hormone blocker and once every 3 weeks, an injection of an innovative and targeted drug, Phesgo. This treatment would directly and most effectively treat the estrogen positive, HER2 positive genetic makeup of my cancer. He knew chemotherapy was not the right choice for my cancer's specific genetic makeup, and that this treatment would give me the best chance of longer-term survival. But my relief was shattered when my insurance company returned with a denial for this treatment. The only way they would cover the treatment is if I would add chemotherapy to it. I could revert to the recommended plan only when the chemo proved to be too toxic for me. And we knew it would prove to be too toxic for me. So essentially, they wanted me to take a treatment that killed all cells, good and bad, versus the targeted treatment that would just address the cancer cells. I'm a marketing professor. I'm around college kids all the time. College kids are notoriously sick. So I worried about how much work I would have to miss, not just to keep myself safe, but also for those days when the chemotherapy would make me too sick to work. My doctor's office appealed the decision, which again was denied. Then the doctor conducted a peer-to-peer review with the insurance company, and again, I was denied. Thankfully, the oncologist reached out to the drug company, and after submitting my tax documents to prove the financial need, I was able to get this covered for a year through the drug company. I've had a scan since then, and I'm happy to report that this treatment plan of Phesgo without chemotherapy is working. There are signs of cancer shrinking, signs of bone regrowth, and less intensity on the spots that do have cancer. I'm able to continue working every day without fear of getting sick from my college students. And I have amazing quality of life under this treatment plan.
If I could have you just hold on there, I think there's going to be a question for you. So
Okay.
Are there any questions? Senator Kell.
Would you like to continue?
Thank you. But my success is in no thanks to the insurance company. I can't imagine how a third party completely removed from my individual situation would have a better idea of the right treatment for me than a top oncologist. So if I can do anything at all to help change the landscape and paradigm under which the insurance industry operates, I'm happy and eager to do it. I know I'm not the only one that's been denied recommended treatment plans, and if nothing is done, there will be too many more people like me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony today. Further questions? If not, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Further proponents? Proponents? If not, we'll take opponent testimony. Any opponents to the bill? Okay, neutral testimony. Mr. Bell.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Vice Chairman Jacobson and members of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee. My name is Robert M. Bell. Last name is spelled B-E-L-L. I am the Executive Director and Registered Lobbyist for the Nebraska Insurance Federation. I am here today in a neutral position on LB 1024. As you know, the Nebraska Insurance Federation is a state trade association of Nebraska insurance companies. The Federation membership includes most of the major medical health plans writing business in Nebraska that are subject to the Health Carrier External Review Act, which is being amended by this bill. External review, as you've heard today, is a creature, well, as we know it today, is a creature of the Federal Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. External review is an independent review of an adverse determination by a health carrier. Before being able to access the external review process, a covered individual must first exhaust all appeals internal to the health carrier, which is called an internal review. So the process goes, you go through all of your internal review of the adverse determination, then application is made for an external review if the adverse determination continues. And I would say and note that if it's a state regulated plan, that appeal goes to the Department of Insurance, who then forwards it on to an independent review organization. If it's a federally regulated plan, that will go to the U.S. Department of Labor. and that will go again to the same group of independent review organizations. These aren't decisions that are made by either the Department of Insurance or the U.S. Department of Labor. Once they receive that application, it goes to the IRO, or Independent Review Organization, which is a nationally accredited organization meeting the standards set forth in statute in the External Review Act. The IRO will receive all sorts of information from both the health provider and the health carrier, the covered person, et cetera, and then they will make a determination of whether or not to override the decision of the health carrier based on the criteria set forth in the Act. And it does provide what an IRO should consider in rendering the decision. One of the factors that is not included, one of the factors that is not to be included is the cost of service, procedure, or the medical supply. So LB 1024 would expressly prohibit that those documents that are solely related to cost. So the health carrier wouldn't be able to provide a document that says this drug costs $50,000 a dose, but there's another drug that only costs $500 a dose, right? Under the provisions of LB 1024. We believe that the external review process is actually working quite well. I'm sorry, I'm over time. I will end my testimony. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Questions for Mr. Bell? Thank you very much for your
You're welcome.
testimony. Any other neutral testimony? All right, seeing none, Senator Bostar, you're welcome to close.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jacobson and members of the committee. You know, we introduce a lot of bills and we hear a lot of bills in this committee, and a lot of them relate to insurance, particularly health insurance. And we consider all of this policy at a fairly macro level. And so I think it's important in this case to just to really evaluate the fact that we are talking about individuals who came in here today. And what we do here, not just on this bill, but what we do here in general, has direct impacts on the health of others, the ability for others to even be here with us. And it's when you spend as much time as we all do dealing with the very high level policy, I think it is important to be able to view what's happening on the ground with our systems, our practices, and our policy. I hope this bill helps. This is an important issue. It's a serious problem we have. When you're dealing with serious medical challenges and you're fortunate enough to find a treatment that won't cure you, but will help you, will let you live your life, will let you recover to a great extent. You're incredibly fortunate if you get that opportunity. Most don't get that opportunity. And so what we're talking about here is individuals who were faced with some what would be considered, I think, probably unbearable health challenges, and then finding through the work of their healthcare teams and their physicians, finding treatments that genuinely help them. And then after some period of time, in the first testifier's case, after 2 years, having that cut off. It does seem cruel. The drug manufacturer is currently supplying that medication, that treatment, at no cost because the insurance provider will not cover it. Covered it for 2 years and then stopped. At this point, our system is relying on the generosity of a pharmaceutical company to, frankly, keep someone alive. While I appreciate the fact that right now that medication, that treatment is being provided, that has an end date from the pharmaceutical manufacturer. Hopefully it can keep getting pushed out as long as possible, but there's no guarantee. I don't like a system that relies on big pharma giving away medication. There's a problem there. And we can do better than that. Sometimes drugs that are prescribed and then covered. So a doctor says you should get it, and your health insurer concurs, but then you stop having it covered. That can happen for a number of reasons. One reason is that sometimes medication is unsafe, right, after a certain amount of time. Other times, that's just simply how long the clinical trial was when it sought approval. So drugs were submitted for testing and trials by the FDA, and they go through that process and they submit trials that lasted, let's say, for example, 2 years. And they can demonstrate efficacy, they can demonstrate some level of safety, and they can get the dosing figured out. The system we currently have in place allows insurance covers to follow guidelines that say, well, the trial initially was only 2 years long. So who knows if it would work for 2.5 years? We don't have to cover it. Well, to be clear, we're looking at an individual that is on the drug for longer than what the insurance provider thought was appropriate. And I don't know in this drug's case whether it's because the clinical trial was only for 2 years or because they thought that somehow it wouldn't be safe after 2 years. I don't know. And frankly, it doesn't matter. This person is still coming before us, living a life, contributing to our great state. And so whatever the reason, it was wrong. We can see that with our own eyes. So like I said, I thank you for your time and attention. I hope that this legislation helps. It's part of the conversation we need to have and certainly should continue to have. With that, I would be happy to answer any final questions.
Senator Von Gillard.
Thank you, Senator Bostar. We heard two very compelling testimonies today. How many others are out? Do we have any way of knowing how many other individuals are out there? What's the prevalence of this problem? Any idea on numbers?
Not really. But perhaps there are some ways to find out, and we should try to look into it. But yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and there's a couple of issues here. One is just denials of treatments outright. And then there's denials of treatment that you were already getting. And both of those have potential serious consequences. And so it would be interesting to see how to kind of figure out how big the challenge is that we're facing.
And your bill doesn't do anything to address or challenge the current external review process, correct?
It would, when the documentation and information is submitted for the external review to the external review organization, it would be prohibited to submit information that was solely related to cost.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? If not, I do want to mention there were 2 proponent letters received, no opponents, and no neutral letters received. With that, that concludes the hearing on LB 1024.
Thank you.
Let's just take a brief break, as I think there may be some leaving the room, and we'll go to Senator Dungan next.